Welcome, I'm Dragon, and now it's been a year since my first Blender or something 3D related video, which in my mind is pretty crazy. Within the year, I've basically shown everything I've done through YouTube, and was able to get 500 subscribers. So this video is basically going to be a very condensed recap of the last year, starting with my first video about my first 13 Blender creations. Most of those models were created with the help of a basic beginner Udemy course, other than the 3 cars and the puzzle. The car that actually looked really good was one that I made following a YouTube tutorial video that took over 32 hours in total. The video itself, or videos, weren't necessarily that long, it was just that was around how long it took me to actually make it anyway. From there, I was able to get my first 3D printer, a Prusa Mini, and it was able to print my logo that I had designed in Blender.
And now the first ever print on this 3D printer is complete, or at least the first successful completion.
After this printer, I got set on making cars that I hoped would look almost as good as the one I made following the tutorial. This consumed most of my Blender modeling time for the next 4 to 5 months because each car took around 10 hours, and by the end of this, I had made 8 cars, with each car looking a little bit better than the last, at least for the most part. Overall, though, I would say I made my goal of getting at least a couple of cars to be comparable to the one I made with the tutorial, specifically the race car and the Lamborghini. But now, going back a little, I still did manage to do some other Blender things, like learning some very basic sculpting skills, where I made a pumpkin and a lizard. I also made a simple animation for a Ducky 3D contest, which was pretty fun. And of course, I still had school while learning Blender, so I was actually able to incorporate my science class with Blender and 3D printing to make a Rube Goldberg machine that was absolutely insanely fantastic that I was able to do that. The Rube Goldberg machine also inspired me to make some 3D printed puzzles, which were pretty cool. Nearing the end of my car frenzy, I also started making some simple Blender tutorials, like the slime tutorial.
And today I will be showing you how to build slime in Blender 2.9 using MantaFlow.
Around this time, I also got my M1 Mac, which I am still using now and probably will be for the foreseeable future. I also decided to make a video with it to see how well it worked with Blender, and it became what is still my most popular video by far, with 21,000 views. When I started not modeling cars, I changed my focus to learning how to do Blender quicker with the time challenges and making more tutorials. Within this, I've also made a simple animation revolving around the default cube, which was really fun to make, even though it was very simple. Randomly, I all of a sudden wanted to see if an RC helicopter would work with 3D printed wings. Spoiler, it did, until you go out of range, of course. Then I made another car because it had been around 2 to 3 months since the last one. Following the car, Blender 2.92 was released, allowing me to make my first and still only video about geometry nodes, where I made a fun little light speed effect. Shortly after, I made my first ever review about a 3D printer, which happened to be the most popular 3D printer, the Ender 3. Sci-fi related things then became interesting for a time being, where I made a time challenge with a simple loop, sci-fi loop, and a tutorial on a sci-fi tunnel. I then made a simple water fountain tutorial, which randomly became my most popular Blender tutorial with around 2,000 views. I then made 2 more tutorials before I made what is probably my favorite thing I've made so far, which is my articulated lizard based on Fireball. After a few more videos, I compared the Prusa Mini to the kit version of the Prusa Mini. Skip ahead even more, I decided to make my first character and try tracking at the same time, which made me realize I really need to do more tracking and visual effects because the end results are awesome. I then reviewed this CR10 and made some other videos before making Wildlife Wobble and Dino Balance. These are some games I made for 3D printing. The Dino Balance version is available for free on Prusa printers if you have a 3D printer, and the Wildlife Wobble version is on Etsy, not the STL file, so if you don't have a 3D printer, it's totally fine there. I then made a pogo stick before making what is probably the most time-consuming Blender project / video project I've ever done. My Blender Quick Tips. These quick Blender videos were Blender tips I've tried to make under a minute long to prevent people from having to watch long videos for one simple tip. For the most part, this worked out, other than I probably had some of them go a little too fast, and I had to spend around 1 to 3 hours for each video, because I had to do the research and all the other things for a video. In total, I made 31 quick tips to have one video every day for the month of August. That project was definitely pretty time-consuming, but hopefully allows others to save time. Because this project was pretty recent, I haven't done anything else besides making a video about Fireball's life because Fireball unfortunately passed away not that long ago. In the video, I also made a lizard with Blender with the tag of #RememberFireball. Do not leave it on a sad note. I've also made a simple driver tutorial since the quick tip videos that should allow you to get introduced into drivers if you haven't already. So there we have it. We have now covered what I've done with Blender and 3D printing over the last year in a very condensed way. Hopefully you liked what I've done and will continue to enjoy what I do in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!